Hey, how's it going? My name is Grant Chiasson, mental performance coach. And in this video, I sat down with college baseball player Austin O'Leary. Great conversation talking about his transition from high school into college, what he expected, what got him through some adversity, and most importantly, how his faith grounded him in who he was and where he was meant to be. So definitely need to check him out. He's on socials. That's where I met with him. He was talking about his faith, his vulnerability, and I just connected with him right away. And from that, from him taking that, leap of faith to post it, talk about it, we connected and we partnered together. And Austin is officially a GCMP fearless athlete. So check out the interview. Let me know what you think. Austin, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Good, dude. Thank you so much for hopping on. I'm so excited to have this chat today and just learn more about you and your journey, what you've been through. And I think you embody a lot of what athletes need to strive for in terms of just building the brand, building the mindset, everything around them. So super pumped to get you on, man.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So let's just dive into it. Tell me about the journey from Arkansas to now College of the Ozarks
Yeah.
and
So
everything that led you to there.
yeah. So I went to Shiloh Christian High School. It's here in Springdale. My family is originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. So I moved to Arkansas probably when I was in seventh or eighth grade, and then was here all throughout high school. And had a few offers coming out of high school, places kind of all over the country, and kind of went through the process. Going on the visits and talking to all the coaches, and going throughout the recruiting process in high school, and ended up falling in love with C of O in Branson, Missouri, and that's where I ended up. It's where I spent my freshman year, and I've loved it up there.
That's awesome, man. I was listening to a podcast yesterday and what was your, I don't think people talk enough about this, but, looking around the country and just what was your mindset in terms of, weighing down, do I travel? Do I sign further away? Do I play a little bit closer? What were some factors that were just important to you in determining where you would go play?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was definitely I wanted to find a place where I could develop, not just as a baseball player, but as a man, as an individual. And so that was kind of, there's a lot of things that play into that, obviously. And, I talked with my parents a lot about it too of, do I want to stay closer to home so they can come watch me play? Do I want to kind of get out and, explore the world and kind of be my own person? And, I kind of came to the conclusion of, it ultimately was going to come down to where I thought I could grow the most as an individual, whether that be Missouri or Florida or Pennsylvania, wherever. It just so happened to be Missouri was where I thought I could, grow the most. And I think, just kind of a perk as well. It's a Christian college, and that's not something I necessarily was dead set on.
Hmm.
But I think it was kind of also the Lord's provision in my life, that on top of the school that I thought was going to allow me to grow the most just happened to be a Christian school as well. So it was kind of twofold. I get to grow, as a man and as a baseball player, but I also get to grow deeper in my faith. And I think that was definitely something the Lord kind of just placed some stepping stones in my life to make it work out that way. And I'm super glad that it worked out.
I want to dive into your faith so badly right now, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it I'm going to stay on script and just make sure that we get to it. We get to it, but we're going to get there in a second. But that's awesome. So coming out, you're ready to start playing. Did you start in the summer or did you enroll in the fall, or how'd that work out from that transition?
Yeah, so I committed about right at the start of my senior year,
Mm,
is when I knew I wanted to go play at SIVO. And so I spent my whole senior season committed to play there, and then played summer ball, and then got on campus early in the fall. And that's when I
mhm.
got on campus, was early in the fall.
I got you. So how about the transition from, high school? And I mean, at least you knew you had done your research and you knew that this was a place that you were going to be and be there.
Mhm.
But what was the first kind of, moment where you said, "Oh wow, like I'm really here. I made it. This is a little bit different than high school."
Yeah, I kind of To be honest, I was pretty nervous about it.
Mhm.
Going to a place where you don't know anybody, new environment, new coaching staff, new teammates. I mean, everything was just different. And you didn't really, I didn't really know really what to expect. Obviously, I'd never played college ball before, and there's a lot of unknowns with it. And I didn't really register the like, wow, this is different until probably my first practice in the fall. Getting on the field, and I realized very quickly that when you're stepping onto a college baseball team, like every single guy that's in that locker room was a dude in their high school, and everybody can play. And but it was kind of a bad news bears when I got out there and caught my first bullpen, and I was like, all right, like we're going, and but it was awesome, and it took me a little while to settle in.
No,
But yeah, it was definitely that first fall practice was kind of like the oh wow moment.
yeah. It's hilarious you said that. I remember my head coach when I got to Northwestern State. He said, in the first 45 minutes of my first practice, I said, "Oh my gosh, there's no way I can do this. I'm going home. I'm calling my dad." And I thought in the back of my head, like, man, why would he think that? That was before we started. So same thing. Practice started, and within about 30 minutes, I said, "What have I gotten myself into? I am not cut out for this." And I was the most confident kid in the world, But like you said, you quickly find out that you got to fight for every rep and every inch when you're in the college game. So yeah, I mean, look, and the transition too is nerve wracking. I mean, just thinking about it, you get comfortable, in your shoes. And, I tell the seniors a lot. I have a lot of good relationships when I was coaching high school. And, I'd say, "Hi, you ready to graduate?" I said, "Coach, I'll be honest, I'm really nervous. Like, I don't know what to expect. And I'm not even going anywhere for college. Like, I'm staying home and I'm still nervous, And it's just a world that, it's totally normal. It's like the new process, the new transition. So it's tough. So you start rolling into practice, you get comfortable, life is good, and season starts, and then of course injury happens. So let's talk a little about the injury and kind of what went into it and how you were able to, build from it through it all.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little scary. Got blindsided by a fastball, and it knocked me unconscious. Had to go to the
Mhm.
ER and do a bunch of tests and labs, and there was a lot of extensive rehab after that. I was about for about a month and a half to 2 months. So I missed a pretty big chunk of the season. And it was tough, not being able to go out and just practice or play or do really anything. Just got literally sidelined. Just had to stand there and watch. And it was kind of one of those things where I was super obviously upset and disappointed and angry that this had happened. But it kind of forced me to take a step back and really just evaluate why I play the game. It was just kind of weird. It was kind of one of those things. I remember talking to my athletic trainer, and I was like, he was asking me how I was doing, and I was like, Gary, like I was really upset about a month ago, but now I've kind of come to grips with it, and I know I can either take the route of sulking and being upset and not being a good teammate and just showing up and going through the motions, or I can choose the other option where I show up with the work ethic of trying to rehab, trying to come back and doing, everything I can to impact the team. And so, it was kind of, I think for me, it was more of a just soul defining moment of I understand now that I'm not just going out to throw a 5-ounce ball around, but I'm going out there to, build relationships and bonds and really just play the game that, I fell in love with when I was a little kid.
Oh man, that's awesome. I mean, I tried. That's part of my, what I do with my coaching practice and everything I do is to try to get, athletes to just zoom out. See, you see the big picture, right? I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
see that this is one small little step on the, skyscraper that you're climbing in the world of college athletics. So that's pretty cool that you were able to take that moment and just kind of be present in that
Yeah.
and sit with it for a little bit, but to use it for the better good, just to
Mhm.
kind of, realize, this is exactly where I need to be. And I know your faith played a huge part of that.
Oh
So,
yeah, for sure.
um, in terms of the rehab process, once you kind of flip that switch of, okay, I can't do anything, but how did you remind yourself every day that, okay, the most important thing I can do is this session of rehab right here? this practice right here. I got to be have the best attitude for my teammates at this practice. I can't do anything, but I can be there, and avoiding the dread of, oh man, what if I'm getting passed up? These guys are starting to play ball better than me. I mean, I'm going to lose this spot. How am I going to get back on the depth chart? How do you keep that balance of the right mindset in a rehab?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you kinda touched on it a little bit with the whole, guys passing up or getting further in the depth chart. That was really my first thought was when I got hurt, I was like, you know, "Crap, there goes my shot," right? Like,
Yep.
I've lost my opportunity. And I kinda had to remind myself that, you know, yes, this thing happened. Yes, you're injured. Yes, you can't play. But at the end of the day, kind of like what I went back to, you can do one of two things of sulk and feel sorry for yourself and, not choose to take the better path of moving forward, or you can just bear down and, you know, show up to rehab every day with the mindset of I'm going to be locked in for this hour and this is going to help me in 2 months, right? This is going to help me get back in the depth chart. Because if you don't do that, then you have no other option but to just waller in your pity and feel sorry
Mhm.
for yourself, and that's not going to help you get back in the depth chart. But it was definitely hard. There was definitely a season there for a bit where I was kind of just feeling sorry for myself and was honestly just kind of asking, why did this happen to me? Like, why did this happen at this time in the season? And, that's when the thoughts of, the guys are going to pass me up in the depth chart and all these different things. And, I kind of had to just come to grips with it of I can either, focus solely on that or I can focus solely on building myself back up and getting back in the depth chart. And it was kind of just encouraging for me knowing that, those are the only two options that you got. And, you can either do one or the other. So,
That reminds me of Drew Brees. Drew Brees, obviously a Hall of Fame first ballot quarterback, and I'm 60 miles from New Orleans, so I'm growing up in my prime of high school watching him in his prime. Just unbelievable. And listening to his story, I keep going back to it over and over of how his dream was to be a professional baseball player. Like Ted Williams was his
mhm.
favorite athlete of all time. That's why he wore number 9. And all he wanted to do was be a professional baseball player, play college ball, get drafted. And at the end of his junior year, football tore his ACL, and that's an 8-month rehab in 1997. So he's out. And his first thought was, okay, I can either feel sorry for myself and think of another way to get back in the game, or I can just say, you know what, I'm gonna put on weight. I'm gonna put the muscle on, get my focus right, and go all in on football and try to earn a scholarship. And the rest kind of worked out for itself. So I think this will probably end up being a gateway into your faith. But did you have a daily routine, a reminder to keep yourself back on track to kind of flip that switch of, oh, whoa, no more sulking. Like, hey, this is what's important now. Let's dive into it.
Yeah, for sure. You know, like I touched on, I definitely went through a season where,
Hmm.
I was questioning God as to, why would you let this happen to me?
Hmm.
And I ended up talking to one of my former youth pastors I had in high school, and he kinda got on to me a little bit. He was like, "Well, why are you questioning God?" And I was like, "Well, I'm frustrated, I'm upset, like, why does this have to happen to me?" Um, and then he kind of flipped the script on me. He was like, "Well, ask yourself, why did this happen to me in a different lens?" And what he meant by that was, what is God trying to show you in this season? What is he trying to teach you? What can you learn from this? And it kind of forced me to sit down and really just evaluate why, like, what's my why? What's the reason that I get up every morning to go to those early morning lifts or stay in, those late practices, late night work in the cages? Like, why do I ultimately do that? And ultimately it's to glorify God. And, I think what really it forced me to just sit back and because couldn't do anything. I couldn't go
Yeah.
out and throw. I couldn't go hit. I couldn't go run. I couldn't do any of that. I just had to sit there. And, it forced me to reflect on what was really important, but also what was the main focus and drive for me every day showing up onto the field. And like I said, it was to glorify God. And that kind of helped me through that season of doubt and, really just being upset with God, asking him, why would you let this happen to me? But it was kind of reassuring knowing that, that it was more of a growing moment, and he kind of showed me allowed me to be still, and he forced me to be still, literally. But forced me to be still and just kind of sit and really do some soul searching.
Man, that's so wise. You sound so much wiser beyond your years, man. I have to ask you, I mean, when did your faith become just this integral part of your life, and how did this happen, and what are your daily routines that are non-negotiable to just keep that faith as strong as possible?
Yeah, I would say I've always kind of grown up, in a Christian household. My parents have instilled that in me since I was born. Been raised, up in church and everything. And,
Mhm.
I think it really didn't hit me as far as being regimented and really trying to be routine and in tune with God until I got into high school. And that's when I kind of knew, okay, like I wanted to go, play college ball and take
Mhm.
that route. And along with that, it came a lot of stress and anxiety, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform in all these different things, and it kind of clicked with me probably my sophomore year of high school that all this pressure I was putting on myself, I didn't have to. That at the end of the day, I have a God given ability to go play baseball. And that in itself is just all the motivation that I need to go out and play. Because at the end of the day, it's a game, and it's a gift that I get to go out and play the game, right? And especially at the college level, like a very few percent of people get to do that. And that in itself is a gift, and I have to remind myself that constantly of that I try not to take advantage of my situations and my circumstances because I am extremely blessed and fortunate. And that's definitely something I try to remind myself of daily. When I get up in the morning, I sit there and I do my devotions in my quiet time, and I'm thankful for, I'm thanking God that he's put me in the positions that I've been in. And I like to go back and kind of think about my move from Utah, then coming to Arkansas, and then ending up, with all the different offers I had out of high school. What a blessing that was. But then that he placed me at C of O in Missouri, and kind of all those stepping stones that he put in my life and the puzzle pieces, how they lined up together. It's definitely a blessing. And I try to remind myself that every day. So when the things get hard or I may be struggling, that I go back to the base of it's still a blessing to play a game.
Wow. Yeah, I look back in my playing days way back when, and I carry this over now because I'm a failed college quarterback. I like to say, 2.5 years, and that was it. And so now I have to wake up every night, or not every night, but often dreaming like, what if I just stuck with it 3 more years, or if I gave it a shot at another school? I mean, all the things, but it's just how many times did I tell somebody, or talk to a teammate, we say, oh, we have to go to weights at 6 a.m., or we have to go run sprints at 5 a.m., or we have to go to practice today on Sunday because we play on Thursday,
Mhm.
instead of flipping the switch and saying, I get to go to practice today, I get to lift weights today, I get to be a Division 1 athlete today, and
Absolutely.
if I can go back, I'd go hang a little bookmark from my rearview mirror on my car, and I would say get to, and then I would just remind myself every day, hey, you get to do this. This is what you wanted. This is what you get to do. And it's just a quick way to reframe, because that's what it all is when it's all said and done. So we're a little bit different in terms of the time frame of athletics. So you're in the NIL era. You're in this new phase of life, and the golden era, in my opinion, of being able to create, put out content, being able to essentially almost monetize from it. So talk to me about your perspective on the NIL scope, what you're doing in terms of social media. Which, if you're not following Austin on Instagram, he's got an incredible account. I love looking at his reels and all of his posts. That's where we connected. And what is your take on it moving forward?
Yeah, so I know there's a lot of conflicting opinions. Some people think, the NIL scene is ruining college athletics. I think the exact opposite. I think like you said, it's the golden era of sports. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity, not for, college athletes like myself to, express ourselves, but also, you know, be able to benefit from it. I think for me, I just started posting content because I like content creation. I started
Yeah.
posting when I was a junior, senior in high school just for fun. And then I kind of realized like well, I'm a college athlete now. Like I can, benefit from this and I can, maybe build something out of it. And that's kind of where I am at now. I've got a few sponsors and been able to monetize from it and make a little money. And it's been awesome. But I've also, kind of had to go back to remind myself of why I started, which was just, to have fun with it. But I do. I think the NIL scene of college athletics, especially for content creators, it's been awesome.
Yeah. It's I love it personally. In terms of I number one, I know and fully believe, like a lot of people who have played the sport and been in college athletics, that you need to be compensated. You need to have the ability to be compensated. And, what a great opportunity to not only build while you're in college, but to prepare yourself for life after college. Like for you, you can find an identity in creation. You can find an identity in, what you're putting out, the ability to market and the ability to network in that way. And I mean, to have those skills leaving the sport whenever that time may be, hopefully at your own will when you want to, is truly a luxury to have. So I think it's just a win-win, and college athletes need to just take full advantage of it. Personally, if I was in high school, I'd be watching every reel about, day in the life, what is it like a typical morning, a weight session, a recovery session, and just seeing, what it's like to be in that space and realizing, okay, like this is something I want. This is something I want to do.
For sure.
Um, so look, here comes the next big step or the big obstacle for any college athlete, the balance, right? So now you've got social, you've got academic, you've got athletic, you've got your personal branding, which you do with your content, and everything on top of also just having your identity and having hobbies outside of sports. So after your first year of college, and I know it's a little bit different, in terms of the season, but how did you find the balance, and how do you recommend to, let's say, incoming freshmen to find the balance and to make sure it's all just pretty even keel?
Yeah, I'd be naive to say I have it all figured out because I I definitely didn't, going into college, but, it took me a little bit to kinda get in the groove and figure things out, just being an incoming freshman, like I said earlier, not knowing anybody, new coaching staff, new school, new campus, really don't know anybody, outside of my roommate, and so, it took me a little while to figure out, but I think, the most important thing for me was time management, but with that understanding priorities, and what the no, the non-negotiables were daily for me. And the most important thing was non-negotiable was first thing I get up in the morning, I'm getting in God's word and just starting my day off that way. That way it is, it's the first thing I see when I wake up, starts the day off right, getting it out of the way. But that's gonna be the
Everything else the rest of the day is a little bit easier after that, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely. But yeah, it just sets off the day, in the right direction. And, I think being a college athlete, there's a lot of things that come with that, especially being in season, on the road all the time, trying to, make up assignments on the road, take tests on the road in hotels. It can be easy to lose track of things and, just forget about assignments or different things like that. And so, I think keeping like, for me, I had to keep a planner and write everything
Yeah.
down because I
Yes.
mean, I literally couldn't keep track of everything, but, I think understanding the end goal as far as, where I wanna see myself in 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, that kinda helps me align my priorities day to day. So I understand, obviously my walk with the Lord is first, then I have my academics because it's student athlete, and so those academics come, right after that. And then, the built in with athletics, I'm obviously at practice every day and in the weight room and in the cages and everything like that. And so, definitely just understanding priorities and kind of how everything trickles down on the ladder. And if you do those things and you get things done in a timely manner, you still have time to be social and enjoy a college experience, and not fall behind.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, I think I like how you said, number one, like you're gonna win the morning and everything just becomes a little bit easier. When you wake up stressed and you wake up just behind and you wake up with that high cortisol and you're thinking about everything I have to do today and everything, and you didn't get enough sleep and all this. It's just you start the day off on the wrong foot. And when you can just center yourself and be present for just that, whatever, however long that time period is, just to lock in, be with the Lord, get ready, see the day ahead of you. I mean, everything just slows down a little bit.
Yeah,
So way
absolutely.
ahead of the game. Can't recommend it enough. You're killing it. All right. So I gotta ask you, I mean, I don't want to keep you forever. I want to understand if I could, let's see. I mean, you have an interesting perspective and we talked about it with the injury, but let's say you're fully healthy and life is good. You are cleared, ready to go. Moving into, a year, 6 months from now, where you're pretty much starting your preseason in January, December. What would be probably the top, I guess you could say, mindset or mental barrier that you see collectively, either from yourself or you would envision seeing for, like college baseball, your team, or just the sport in itself that would hold you back from elite performance?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing, especially with baseball, I
Hmm.
think, you know, it's a common expression that it's a game of failure. At the plate, if you fail 70% of the times in the big leagues, you're a Hall of Famer. There's literally not another sport like that. And so I think, that's definitely something that I've battled with my whole career, is being forced to, in my mind, redefine success, and
Hmm.
understanding what, you know, in a game in a 56 game season, it's going to be a roller coaster of emotions, a lot of
Yeah.
highs, a lot of lows. And so I think preseason that can be something that really creeps in the mind. You have a bad inner squad, a bad fall,
Hmm.
bad practice, whatever, because everyone's fighting for spots.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to climb the depth chart, and it's a game of that demands consistency. And when you're not consistent, it can get rough at times. And so I think that's something that I've kind of battled with my whole career, is understanding that, trying to stack good days on top of each other. But when the good days don't stack, it can be difficult to, keep a driven focus.
Yeah. I love how you said that. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and
Yeah.
it's just so easy. I mean, you start the race and you trip on your face right away.
Mhm.
I mean, it's so easy to just spiral the whole time. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've started this way. Am I ever going to catch up to the guys in front? But if you look at it, I mean, a marathon's a long race.
Yeah.
So it's a long season, and I mean, you hit the head of the nail right there. And one thing I would suggest, to anybody who gets into that mindset is, like you said it perfectly, redefine success. And I think success has to be getting your daily wins, living to your standard of who you want to be. Because let's face it, if you're compounding every day your wins to the standard that you want to live, to who you want to be, who you're striving to be, the success is going to be inevitable. So, I mean, if you just look at it from this perspective of, did I win the day? Yes. Okay. On to the next day. Let's go. How can I improve even more and step it up? And it doesn't mean stay in the cage till 11 o'clock at night. It just means that be positive, get 1% better, and just compound it consistently. Do it 365 days a year. It doesn't have to be a 10% gain once a month, just 1% every day. And that's what I try to tell clients all the time. And, we have evidence logs. I say every night, I don't care what it takes. The first thing you're doing for me is you're going to put in a journal. I'll send you a journal if you need to, but numbers 1, 2, 3, and you write 3 wins from the day every single night. And you're going to convince yourself that I did win the day. I did do something. I did get 1% better. And then now it's in the back of your head, like, what can I do in the morning? What can I do today for my journal tonight for my 3 wins? So you're
Yeah.
always thinking about it in that perspective. So
Absolutely.
uh, awesome, man. Look, Austin, can't thank you enough for hopping on, man. This has been absolutely incredible. Definitely one of the best I've ever had. And I'm looking forward to continue to connect with you and to network with you and help you build your brand. And I think this is the start of something really great, and you've got it going on. So, any more advice, Austin? What would you tell those incoming freshmen getting on the campus, probably this week as we're filming this?
I would say biggest thing, um, understand, your why, understand the motives for why you do what you do. Because when you get on campus, there's going to be a lot of distractions, for lack of a better word, a lot of things pulling at your brain. And so you got to have that one thing that you can go back to every day. And that keeps you motivated, gets you out of bed in the morning. And regardless if you had a bad day the day before or if you had a great day, you still get up with the same mentality and same mindset every morning. But that goes back to understanding, your basis and your why for
Mhm.
what you do.
Absolutely incredible. Wise beyond his years, Austin O'Leary. Thank you so much for being on, man, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me.